Picture a Saturday night in 1990s Britain. The kettle's just gone quiet, the curtains are drawn, and the most trusted face on television appears on screen. It's Michael Aspel, the man millions associated with warm, feel-good family programming. But tonight, he isn't reuniting old friends. He's calmly introducing a segment on ghosts, vampires, and alien encounters, presented as real, investigated cases. Wait, what? The show was called Strange But True, and that question mark was doing a lot of work. It aired on ITV, one of Britain's biggest mainstream networks, starting with a pilot in 1993 and running across 4 full seasons until November 1997. This wasn't a niche cable oddity. It was scheduled alongside soap operas and game shows, watched by ordinary families across the country. Here's the strange part. This wasn't tabloid junk thrown together for cheap thrills. Each episode used filmed reconstructions, with actual actors performing the events, cut together with interviews of the real people who claimed to have lived through them. Witnesses sat across from cameras and recounted their own hauntings, sightings, and near-deaths, while dramatized versions played out beside their testimony. And standing behind every single episode was one name, Jenny Randles. She wasn't a TV personality dabbling in spookiness for ratings. She was an established paranormal researcher brought in as story consultant for the entire run. Her presence meant every case that made it to screen had passed through someone who had spent a career investigating exactly this kind of material. So what actually filled these episodes? The premise promised a genuinely wide net. Ghosts and poltergeists rattling ordinary households. Near-death experiences reported by people who had clinically died and come back. And stranger still, vampires and aliens, treated with the same investigative seriousness as a haunted stairwell. Think about that range for a second. Most paranormal programs pick a lane: ghost hunting, or UFOs, or cryptid folklore. Strange But True refused to pick one. In a single series run, viewers could go from a poltergeist tormenting a family's kitchen to a patient describing floating above their own hospital bed, to a witness swearing they'd encountered something not of this earth. The vampire episodes are especially striking. This is British primetime television, in the 1990s, treating vampire folklore not as gothic fiction, but as a subject for documentary-style investigation, reconstructed with actors, framed the same way as a ghost story or an alien abduction. It's a genre mashup that simply doesn't exist on mainstream TV today. And then there's the near-death experience material, arguably the most human and the hardest to dramatize with actors. These were accounts from people who had genuinely gone through cardiac arrests, comas, or medical emergencies, describing what they experienced in that gap between life and death, then sitting down years later to describe it to a national television audience. Now here's the part that should make you sit up. A show this strange, mixing dramatized reenactments of ghosts and vampires with genuine witness testimony, didn't run for one awkward season and quietly get canceled. It ran for 4. A pilot in 1993, 3 full series, and even a standalone special in 1997 before its final broadcast that November. 4 years of primetime slots for a show blending vampires, poltergeists, and near-death testimony is not a small achievement in British broadcasting. It suggests something the archives don't fully explain. Audiences weren't just tolerating this content. They were coming back for it, season after season, year after year. Then, on the 7th of November, 1997, it simply stopped. Series 4 was the last. There was no dramatic finale case, no farewell special explaining why the show that had run 4 years investigating the unexplained was itself about to become unexplained, at least in terms of why it ended when it did. Try searching for it now. There's no streaming library holding all 4 seasons. No box set sitting on a shelf. What's left is a bare-bones entry on IMDb, a Wikipedia stub with episode lists reduced to empty section headers. Pilot, Series 1, Series 2, Series 3, a special, Series 4, and almost nothing else. Think about the irony sitting inside that. A television series built entirely around cases nobody could fully explain, hauntings, alien encounters, experiences at the edge of death, has itself become a case nobody can fully explain. Why did 4 years of mainstream, well-produced paranormal documentary leave behind so little trace? Consider what it took to make. Reconstructions require actors, sets, film crews, scripts drawn from real testimony. Interviews require tracking down actual witnesses willing to go on camera and describe their ghosts, their vampires, their near-deaths, their alien sightings, in their own words, to a national audience of millions. That's not a small production. That's a sustained, 4-year editorial commitment from a major British broadcaster to treat the paranormal, not as a Halloween special, but as an ongoing documentary beat, worthy of a consistent research consultant and a household name host, week after week, season after season. And Michael Aspel is the piece that still doesn't quite fit. He was, by reputation, one of the safest, most reassuring hosts in British television history. Yet here he is, for 4 seasons, guiding a nation through vampire folklore and alien testimony. What made a host like that agree to front a show like this? We don't have a clean answer. The record doesn't tell us why the show ended in 1997, why it left almost no archival footprint, or what conversations happened behind the scenes to greenlight 4 seasons of vampires and near-death testimony on mainstream ITV. That gap is exactly what makes it worth talking about. So if you remember Strange But True, if you were one of the people watching Michael Aspel calmly narrate a vampire case on a Saturday night in the 1990s, we want to know. Drop it in the comments. Somewhere out there, someone still has the tapes, the memories, or the answers this archive lost. A television show about the unexplained that became unexplained itself. That's the kind of strange loop only real history can produce. If stories like this one belong in the dark corners of pop culture, pull you in, subscribe, because somewhere out there is another show, another case, another question mark just as strange as this one.